Hello, I'm going to be giving you a brief overview demo of DORA, which stands for Diagnostic Online Reading Assessment. I'm going to start off with a few slides and then we'll jump into the teacher interface. First of all, it is important to realize that DORA is not a standards assessment. Sure, it will align to standards, but genuine diagnostic assessments are not built around standards. Let me explain. In this graph, if we look at a 4th grade student, after taking a standards or benchmark assessment, we would know that that student tested either above, at, or below grade level, and we might see some information about the student's vocabulary and comprehension, but not really necessarily too much information about their decoding or other sub-skills of reading. But if we look at a diagnostic model of assessment like DORA follows, we see that DORA will look at all the sub-skills that make up reading. And it adapts up and down based on the student's performance to find instructional points. So even if the student's very old or the student's very young, it'll go up and down to find instructional points. Now this is very different because standards assessments do not do that. DORA also was built to provide diagnostic information. Therefore the scores are in grade levels and they range from K to 12th grade. It's a valid and reliable assessment. It adapts, as I mentioned before, so it's a computer adaptive assessment. The interface that is presented to the student is based on the student's grade level, but this is to keep the student engaged. The items are separate. It does cover 7 sub-skills of reading, and it takes approximately 60 minutes to complete. For students who are younger, it'll take less time. The other piece about DORA is it does cover all of these sub-skills. If you want to see a detailed demo of this, watch the student interface demo that's available on our site, and we'll actually step you through each subtest. For now, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the teacher interface and show you how DORA looks. Once the assessment is done, and you've tested your entire class, you'll see all this data. These are the subtests that correspond to DORA: high frequency words, word rec, phonics, phonemic awareness, spelling, vocabulary comprehension. If we roll our mouse over and click on any of the question marks, a help menu comes up and we can see this is the Phonics Sub Test, and we see the range, max score of 4.83, and we also see specific scores tied to specific skills. So if a student has a 2.5 score, that means they have mastered long vowel and they'll probably work next on consonant digraphs. I can also sort by any of these columns. So if I sort by phonics, I could sort from low to high. So all of these students are working on beginning sounds. And we see some other students. This student has mastered long vowel, as I mentioned before. This student has mastered all of phonics. I could click on it again and it'll flip it from high to low. So I could do that for any of the individual scores. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at some specific reports. So I'm going to look at the summary report for Ronald. So here we see a collection of these scores, and let me explain how somebody would read these potentially. So Ronald is in grade 2.9, so he took this assessment at the end of 2nd grade, and so we have certain expectations. We expect him to have grade scores around 2.9. We see that in high frequency words he has a score of 2.5. That's within grade level, so we have a green check mark. But in word recognition and phonics he has very low scores, 0.5, which is mid-kindergarten, and 0.17, which is low kindergarten. Now that's interesting. These 3 skills make up decoding, and we see within phonics he hasn't mastered any of the major principles. He's really working on beginning sounds. So that tells me that Ronald has somehow gravitated toward learning to memorize words, but he really hasn't embraced phonics, being able to use phonemes to sound out words, which is interesting. The other piece is I come down and look at his phonemic awareness. We see that he was tested in phonemic awareness. He has a high score. That means he can actually process audio that doesn't involve any reading. So if he heard the word cat, he can actually tell that the ah sound is inside of that word. That's great. That tells me that he can learn phonics, and so I can proceed with that instruction. Now moving forward, we see that he's low in spelling. Oral vocabulary is good. He has a high 4th grade, which is very good. And then his comprehension is a little bit low. I'm not surprised because he's working so much on decoding, probably his comprehension hasn't developed quite yet. So you see now I actually have some tangible concrete data that will guide me in how to work with this particular student. Now this was just a summary report, so I'm going to close that and let's take a look at Ronald's the parent report. This is a very nice report. It's made for parents. Most of our school customers will actually print these out and share them with the parents and with the students. So right here we see, how does Ronald read words? Okay, so we talk about the fact that he's strong in sight words, and right here, goal, to gain strategy to figure out tricky words independently as there is a growth in this area of word recognition and phonics. So we've actually already identified this for you as well. So this is really, it's a pretty powerful report. It's bulleted, it tells you exactly what you need to do. So how is Ronald understanding words? We talk about the fact that he has good vocabulary, and then we need to continue to building up those vocabulary, right? And then finally, how does Ronald put it all together? So here we talk about the combination of vocabulary and comprehension strategies. Finally, in the very end of this, we have activities that somebody could do at home, reading words, making meaning from text. And so really this is a very powerful report that's written for every single student. Now there's a few other reports as well. I mean, we have a teacher version and we have a standards reports, so there's no shortage of information or reports that you can print out. Now let me show you the class profile. This sorts your students by their profile letter, which is really a combination of decoding, vocabulary, and comprehension skills. So if we go ahead and take a look at a different class, and now this class is loaded, and so I'm going to click on the display class profile. And we see the students fall into these different categories. So a student who is low in decoding, low in vocabulary, low comprehension would be an A profile student. Okay. This student here, we have two students in the B profile, which is low in decoding, good in vocabulary, but low in comprehension. And we have a bunch more students in the C category, which is good at decoding, good in vocabulary, but just low in comprehension. So they need to focus on comprehension strategies. These different groups correspond to different curriculum, right? So these students you'll be working on comprehension strategies, and these students you'll be working on decoding and comprehension strategies. So let's click on C. If I click on the C, we see these students in this category right here, and we even have a little paragraph that talks about the profile of the student and explains it a little bit. I can hit the back button, and we see we have some other students as well. H, these are all the students who are on grade level. They're medium or high across all three areas. All right. So anyway, this is your small groups for classroom instruction. It's very powerful. There's a lot more wealth of information. There's more reports under reporting. We allow you to start breaking apart how much a student has spent on reading a passage. We break out, where there's inferential or factual questions in terms of the answers and errors they're making. It's really very powerful and very deep. But that is DORA in a nutshell. All right, thank you.